to Uganda in 2005. Ryan, welcome here.
Coffee from around the world.
Did you know that over the past year, the world of international development has been flipped upside down? Funding has dried up, programs have closed across the globe. It's something the industry has never had to deal with before. And the question is it the NGO's fault? Did they get too big? Did they get too comfortable with the status quo? Or were they responding to what the world was asking them for? Either way, is it time for us to rethink the entire system? Let's find out. My career as a photographer has taken me around the globe, documenting people and stories for organizations that are working hard to create change. But lately, something's shifting. The traditional flow of funding for international development is drying up. Big players have shut down, and the standard models of aid seem to be breaking apart. Is it time to stop relying on governments and the goodwill of individuals? Is it time to start thinking more like entrepreneurs, building businesses that fund change, not just chase profit? Is it possible? Well, it's already happening. And to show you how, I'm going to introduce you to someone who's doing exactly that. He's using profit from his business ventures to fund schools in Kenya, plant trees in Tanzania, and support health centers in Uganda. Let's go get some coffee. My first photography trip to Africa was to Uganda in 2005. In fact, it was my first time traveling to Africa ever. And it was my first paid trip in what would eventually become a career in taking photos for international aid organizations. And I should clarify what I mean by paid trip, because really what happened is the organization paid half my way, and I, in turn, gave them all the photos I took while I was traveling throughout the country. In hindsight, given the trajectory of my photography career, this was a pretty good deal. Beyond the time we spent in the communities, we also rafted the Nile, we went on safari, we met amazing people, and we saw amazing things. It felt like a real adventure. And the person who took me on that first trip was Ryan Snider. Since then, Ryan and I have spent a lot of time together. Currently, Ryan runs two businesses. One is called Socially Responsible Safaris, and one is called Socially Responsible Coffee. He also runs a charitable organization called Give International. And today we're gonna meet Ryan at a place called the KW Coffee Collective, and he's gonna show us around. Ryan.
Hello.
Hey man.
Welcome here.
Okay, so this is the guy. This is Ryan Snider. He runs two businesses that help fund an organization overseas. So Ryan, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, like you said, my name's Ryan. I grew up in Kenya, and my parents were teachers there. And ever since, I've always had a connection with East Africa. Lived in Canada now most of my life, work in Canada. But I get back and forth to Kenya 2 or 3 times a year. My wife, who's also Kenyan, Lisa, she and I have started a few businesses, as you mentioned, trying to create jobs in Kenya, but also to have a social impact at the same time.
Okay.
So here we are at the KW Collective. Come on in, let's go try some coffee. And here we have Ron. Ron is the director of the KW Coffee Collective, and he can tell us a little bit about everything they do here.
So welcome to the KW Coffee Collective. We're Ontario's only shared coffee roasting facility. We're essentially an incubator for coffee businesses. We help new roasters source green coffee, we train them on roasting their coffee, and then help them launch their coffee into the specialty coffee market. In the back here is our green coffee storage area. We receive coffee from around the world. We keep it in this climate controlled room so that it's ready to be roasted by our coffee members.
So for those who aren't familiar, we call green coffee. It almost looks greenish, bluish, some very nice uniform beans there. Typically, the larger the bean, the more valued it is, but also there's the combination of the size of the bean and the quality of the bean. And when it comes here to the collective, then it's roasted. And you can see the difference between the two beans, but that's sort of the before and after. And this is what most people are consuming. Well, that's what everybody is consuming at home.
Okay, so we just finished our tour with Ron from the KW Coffee Collective, and now we're going to go chat with Ryan about how his coffee company and how his safari company are funding programs in Africa. Okay, so can you talk to me about your model? How are you using your coffee and your safari business to fund international programming? Like, what does that workflow look like?
For many, many years, poor countries, developing countries have relied on charity, relied on international assistance, to help build wells or buy shoes or buy school supplies, pay school fees. And I've just felt over the years, as I've spent more and more time in the developing countries, that if people can have jobs and fairly paying jobs and they earn income, not only there's a dignity that comes from that, but they in turn, then they can build their own wells. They can put their kids in school. They can buy their own shoes. And it just seemed a lot more sustainable to me. So my model is to say, how can we create jobs? How can we provide jobs, whether it's drivers, guides, administrators, factories, coffee fields, whether they can get jobs, create jobs, earn an income, and then in turn, now they have that income to go and help their family. And it's been working, it's evident.
So why then run these programs with a business profit model where you make money and then you run an organization that then runs programs? Why wouldn't you just work for an NGO?
Yeah. Well, there's a concept in overseas assistance called sustainable development. Sustainable development is growth, economic growth, development, that meets our current needs without compromising needs of future generations. And so instead of using a charitable model, trying to always raise money, fundraise money, trying to help with projects, there has to be some form of sustainability. And I've learned that when businesses are making money, then they continue to grow. They continue to do it. If something is not making money, it goes bankrupt. And so why are we using a business model? It's that same principle. We're striving for sustainability. Sustainability is not just this end product, it's this process. Striving for sustainability. And if a business is able to make some profit at the end of the year, it's able to pay all its staff, pay its expenses, of course it's going to continue. Of course it's going to grow. And therefore, you have more and more people that are being helped every year because of this sustainable, instead of maybe a development model, sustainable business model.
You used to work for an NGO. So, and at some point you said, I need to do something different, right? And so what was that shift? What did you see?
Yeah, I worked in the NGO, the non-governmental organization, charitable model for many years, mostly East Africa, Sudan, Ethiopia, Mozambique, Kenya, Uganda. And even if someone gave $1 million to this project and we took that $1 million and we used that project, eventually that $1 million dried up. Eventually we spent that $1 million. And now you're back to square one again. And now people are, back in the same poverty they were pre-project. You either had to go back to that donor and hope that they would give another $1 million, or things fell apart. And that's not always the case, but that was often the case. And anybody who works in the charitable model can have story after story, a story of a big project that didn't turn out as intended. And I think I just got tired of that, and I thought there's got to be a better way.
What do you think of the current landscape of NGOs? What do you think of how they operate in the world today?
If you look at the history of NGOs, a lot of it started after World War II, when it was this idea of how can we help rehabilitate these countries that have been bombed, or these countries that have had a lot of impact. And how can the NGOs started out very small scale, they started out very innocently, and over time they've grown and grown and grown, and some NGOs are absolutely massive. And unfortunately, in my opinion, as they've continued to grow and grow and grow, they've lost some of the connection with the people who are really funding those charities, which are the donors. There's a common term called donor fatigue, where the donors just get tired of it. Sometimes they feel like, I'm donating money, I want to help, but I don't really know where that money's going. I don't really know where my money ends up or how it's being spent. And if that happens too often, or if you hear rumors or stories about it, it makes you kind of want to get fatigued and want to pull back. And I think the alternative model, which I'm seeing much more common now, of social enterprise, is this idea of people saying, I want to get involved and I want to help, but I want to be able to be connected to that end product. I want to see what happens. So coffee is a great example. People are able to drink the coffee, People are able to know through traceability who's the farmer. Sometimes on the coffee bag, it'll say who the farmer was and the impact. Sometimes on the coffee bag, it'll say by drinking this coffee, you're supporting a maternity clinic in Uganda, you're supporting a tree planting program in Kenya. We're even starting putting QR codes on the coffee bags. So when people are drinking their morning coffee, they can scan the QR code with their phone. Up on their phone pops a video, and they can see the farmer saying, "Thank you for buying my coffee." Or they can see the farmer saying, "Thank you for buying our coffee. Now my children can go to school." And people love to have that connection. I think one of the main challenges with this business model that we're talking about, a sustainable business model, is there's always a tendency to want to grow the business. There's a tendency to want to earn more income. There's a tendency to be more profitable, and that means growth. And as you do that, just like we mentioned, you start to lose some of the roots. You lose the grassroots, the things that really were pure in the very beginning, because you become a larger organization, more employees, many more policies, a lot more paperwork that goes with it. And so the challenge is to say, how can I continue to grow the company and yet at the same time maintain those connections, those relationships, both with the consumer that's buying the product and also with the producer and the beneficiary at the other side, and trying to grow, but at the same time maintain that relationship so we don't fall into that same pattern or that same issue that some of these large scale charities now are facing.
Is there a story that you could tell that sort of sums up why you do this and the trajectory of business profit to sort of local development in East Africa?
When we started buying coffee from Uganda and we were spending time in the farms and the fields, I met a young girl, we'll call her Victoria, and she was working in the coffee fields picking coffee. She was so poor, she couldn't go to school. She was young, she should have been in school, she shouldn't have been working, and she was picking coffee to help her family with the hopes of going to school. Because we were able to buy that coffee from her family and we were able to pay a fair wage, they were able to take the money that they were earning from their coffee, they were able to help buy a Victoria uniform themselves, they were able to pay school fees for Victoria, and just about 3 months ago, Victoria graduated from grade 8 and she was the top in her class. Had we not purchased their coffee, Victoria would probably still never have gotten to go to school. She'd still be in that coffee plantation picking that coffee herself.
And the coffee she's picking is building a profit for you that then in turn goes back to East Africa in some way.
Back to her same community. People in her community are getting trees to help plant trees, fruit trees, avocado trees, coffee trees. People in her community are getting backpacks for their children where they have a backpack with a logo of the roaster, with school supplies, pens, pencils, erasers, exercise books. People in her community are going to get a maternity ward this year where now instead of having to get on the motorcycle when they're in labor, drive down 15 kilometers to the hospital, now they're going to be able to give birth in their own maternity ward because Victoria's family is producing coffee and getting paid a fair wage, and people in Canada are purchasing that coffee because they care about that family.
So it's working.
It's working. Small scale though. It's small scale, and that's one of the challenges. Whenever I travel around developing countries and I see really good development projects, really good growth, the one thing in common is that they're always small scale. They're small scale, they connect with the beneficiaries, and as things start to get larger and larger, that's where you often see wastage. That's where you often see problems and mistakes.
Okay. That's it, Ryan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
To coffee. Okay, now I have a lot to think about. Let's go home. My initial decision to travel to Uganda in 2005 happened because of a seismic shift in my own reality, and I needed to respond to that change. And what this trip did is it gave me focus. It gave me something to aim for. It gave me a direction. It gave me ambitions. It gave me goals and ideas I didn't even know I had. I went as a photographer, but I soon realized it wasn't about the photos. It was about connecting with people and learning through experience. I used this shift to create a desire that pushed me forward, to want to create something amazing. And here I am, here we are again at another moment, except it's bigger because it's not just me, it's all of us. And things are changing fast. There has been and will continue to be seismic shifts in the way we fund programs both here and overseas. But this is a chance to build new systems, new ideas, and new strategies to bring help to the people who need it most. Scary? Yes. Difficult? Yes. Impossible? Never. Thanks for watching my video.